Hello and welcome to Get Yourself Optimized. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, and today I'm very excited to have Edward Haschke with us. Edward is a photographer, filmmaker, and entrepreneur. He's also a relentless truth seeker and storyteller. His love for all things related to the nature of consciousness has brought him to discover hidden truths that he now shares with those with similar interests regarding forgotten history, suppressed technologies, and the art of ascension. Edward, it's so great to have you on the show.
It's good to be here. Thank you for the lovely introduction.
So let's talk about Ascension. That sounds really awesome. Yeah, what does it mean for you, and what should our listeners take from this?
Well, if anything, Ascension as a, how can I say, as a concept within itself just symbolizes the transformation of the physical into the dreamlike, if that makes sense. People often talk about the power of manifestation and how to, channel more creative energy through their consciousness to, get what they want in life, which is more health, more wealth, more love, and really what people are doing most of the time is that they're seeking something outside of themselves to accomplish that, when actually the journey is within. Um, and understanding that process is the art of ascension, because it will, once you get to the, I don't want to say the end, because I mean it's just everything's just a cycle, but it will lead to a new beginning ultimately, a spiritual enlightenment, so to speak, or the beginning of an initiatory path, which we often call has everything to do with ascension.
Yeah, so in Hindu, I think they call that mokti or um, yeah, something like that, and it's essentially the escape from the life, death, rebirth cycle, where you can ascend into a place of maybe ascended master status or something, where
Hmm.
you don't have to keep learning life lessons over and over again because you've kind of graduated to the next level. So I don't know how tuned in you are to the varying world religions, but Hinduism I don't know a lot about, but I know a little bit about it, and it's all quite fascinating. There seems to be this similar thread between all the world religions, and that they're different paths leading to the same end game, which is oneness with a creator. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Oh yes, well, it is actually interesting how the Hindu culture is, I could say, is one of the cultures that is very open and very open to share more of the knowledge about the spiritual enlightenment and how to really go through the process of, of this ascension, that we're going through right now. They've been, talking about the Kali Yugas and just the cycles that, the universe goes through, and especially what we're going through right now, which is, it connects to even the Mayan calendar, which is the end of the Kali Yuga, the Dark Ages, where we're finally now flipping over to the towards the Golden Age. And so now it's as if, everything happens perfectly, in this like cosmic clock that, the Hindu, the Vedas, everything that they talk about is starting to really come to fruition for many. They're starting more to gravitate towards, that knowledge. So even the concept of what a yogi is, so the practice of yoga is within itself the knowledge of learning how to channel more of this, energy through your kundalini, through the spine. And if you really pay attention to most religions, if you're able to read between the lines, you'll see that they really all are talking about the same thing, which is how to raise your vibration, channel it through your energy centers known as the chakras. Um, and by doing so, you'll actually be able to activate your light body. And the light body is also something that many have talked about. I mean, it's the Merkaba, and Jewish culture. We talk about that a lot. But again, I think that few cultures talk about it as a real science. And I say the Jewish culture definitely does that, also with the Kabbalah, and so many people have understood those principles as being quite, relating to electromagnetism, and it relates perfectly to how our, physiology works within our bodies. So yeah, it's just beautiful that, yoga's become, such a widespread practice, and people like Paramahansa Yogananda, really came through to, all to Western culture to spread that message and teach us some of those ways, because yeah, that's also part of the art of ascension, is learning how to integrate those lessons and practice them in your daily life.
Yeah, yeah. So Yogananda, I'm a big fan of. He wrote the autobiography of a yogi, and I'm curious if
Correct.
you've read that book.
I have, yes. It was one of the first books actually that really kind of opened my mind to the possibilities, of what really happens when you start living this dreamlike reality. It's really, gosh, it's so much stuff that happens that is just unbelievable. But if you do some research to some of the things that he talks about, because has a lot of references in his book, like Dr. Caligari, and the fact that he's referencing real scientists in his time that were studying how energy flows through the body, goes to show that he didn't just have a very spiritual and esoteric understanding of these principles, but also very scientific.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm very scientific myself. I have a master's in biochemistry. I was studying for a PhD, and I ended up dropping out of it. But I have a very scientific bent to me, but yet there's a lot of magic, essentially, in our reality that we don't understand, that doesn't get fully explained or expressed through just science. You really do have to almost have a willing suspension of disbelief in order to experience that stuff. The supernatural or extrasensory things that I seem to have been experiencing at a much more accelerated rate in the last few months. I don't know about you, but does it seem like stuff speeding up in terms of kind of the supernatural things happening?
Oh yeah, I mean, the trick is to just be present and keep your eyes open, because everything, I mean, just living, being present, just acknowledging, feeling emotions is a magic within itself. I mean, we are here manifested in these physical bodies that are just these, incredible machines capable of, literally in like, I want to say, partaking in this, dream reality, but in such a visceral way that, I mean, that within itself is magic. But then, of course, the more you start to take this body and start experimenting with it, and really allow your thoughts and your emotions to kind of merge and manifest, possibilities. I mean, it's really, I started experiencing a lot of different synchronicities the moment in which I've decided to live in my heart space, because what people often don't talk about is how much more powerful the heart is electromagnetically compared to the brain, which is actually 5,000 times more electromagnetically charged than the brain. So when I say living through the heart, I literally mean allowing that heart to literally expand and then drive that energy through the mind and the consciousness to then be able to feel, this heart-brain coherence, which is very important. And
Yeah,
that,
so can you elaborate a
that is
bit
magic.
more on this heart-brain coherence? Yes, it is all magic. I would like our listener to understand how beneficial it is to get that state of heart-brain coherence going through rhythmic breathing and using heart math, for example. It's just really profound.
Yeah, the Heart Math Institute has done some very important studies in regards to heart-brain coherence, because the heart has cells that pretty much act like brain cells. I mean, they're like neurons. The heart is intelligent. People um, allow that information to be channeled without trying to suppress it and disconnect themselves from it, um, they're actually going to release a lot of emotional blockages. Um, and if anything, they're going to start to build a better understanding of themselves, because uh, by by listening to the heart, you're actually receiving some such key information in regards to who you are, perhaps even beyond your physical form. If people, understand that we're mind, body, and soul, and soul is very, very closely related to the heart, because that's the first part of the body that actually starts to function. The heart starts beating before the brain's even formed when you're a fetus. So yes, you more about the heart. If you live and channel that energy, you're actually able to get into even deeper states of meditation, and you're able to actually basically allow the whole body to follow the rhythm of the heart and to be totally in sync. And when that happens, all of a sudden, incredible, health benefits come with it. Your mind is just clearer. You're more just present within your body, and not so scattered. And yeah, it's just, how can I say, I can keep talking about it, but the trick is just, if you tell your viewers to, just take a deep breath and just listen to the heart. Just put their hand, the right hand over their heart, and just sit with it. Close their eyes. If they're just able to do that even for 5 minutes, it will greatly improve their day.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
So what I do is a Wim Hof breathing exercise for about 20 minutes, and then 5 minutes of this rhythmic, just slow breathing, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, and that gets me into heart-brain coherence after the Wim Hof breathing of 20 minutes. I don't do it every day. I really should be doing it every day, but when I do it, it feels amazing. And it's also helpful to feel gratitude or abundance or both while you're doing this heart-brain synchronization process.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the second part, is learning how to then program, because our brains, our subconscious has been gathering programs since we learn how to walk, for example. Even before then, I think. But I'm saying our these programs are constantly running, because if we had to learn how to walk every day, it'd be a bit of a pain, I think. So that's the thing. A lot of these, the way we live, our habits, they're totally built on these programs. And most of the time, we don't really check what programs are going inside of our subconscious. We just kind of live life and live with the conditioning of our parents and our society. And then one day you realize there's an issue with some of these programs. And so if you don't take or make the effort to reprogram or make sure that, the programs you want to keep, you keep, and the ones that you want to get rid of, you get rid of, if that goes unchecked, it's going to be more difficult to be able to really, do this work. So to facilitate that, it really helps to be aware of how the system operates to begin with, and know that it's not, oh yeah, but I can't meditate because, the monkey brain and all that. It's a part of it. Your brain has been so used to, doing, having those thoughts, that now it's going to take, a few days to reprogram, and have different thoughts, or just allow yourself to not think, which is the ideal situation. You've got to work on a clean slate. But then, that's the thing. Eventually the body is built to assist you. Once you reinforce what you want it to do, it will actually, start working and get you there, in a easier way, for sure.
So let's talk about synchronicities. You just kind of glossed over that, and boy, there's a lot of magic in synchronicities. I just recently learned about the origin of that term from Carl Jung, and he wrote an entire book about it. I talked about this on a recent episode, so I won't reiterate it again here, but it's pretty magic that he had experienced such a profound synchronicity that it inspired him to write an entire book about synchronicity and to coin the term. So if you're intrigued by that, go ahead and listen to the episode with Anthony Capobianco, which is a recent episode. Yeah. Okay.
Very intrigued.
Yeah. So let's talk
Thank
about
you.
some synchronicities. What's happened in your life that are essentially not just improbabilities from a statistical point of view, but almost like there's no chance they could be random. They're almost like without a doubt signs of divine intervention.
Well, it's so funny because I'm from Switzerland originally, and I moved here to the US in October because I'm a filmmaker, and I had some meetings with some producers that I met at the Cannes Film Festival and invited me to come work with them out here. Now, when I did that, I didn't know that the producer I was getting involved with actually had some mental issues. That just came up as a real surprise. And it was like, yeah, there's this. I mean, even though he was somebody who was renowned, respected. I'm not going to say his name, but it's it's unfortunate that I came at a time, thinking that something was going to happen. It wasn't going to happen. And so the interesting thing about synchronicity is that because of that event, I was led to the thing I actually really, really am super excited about being involved in right now, which again, we can go into it if you want, but just the way in which the events, coalesced and manifested couldn't have been chance. I mean, it was literally just too magical and too perfect. Actually, you're a member of Metal, so it was actually through another Metal member who invited me into the group to then, just hear some of the wonderful people that talk in this group. And when somebody started mentioning that you can get healed through frequency light technologies, I got very, my ears perked up, and I got very, very intrigued. And so I actually got that person's contact, and then that person spoke to me on the phone for an hour. And just from that phone call, he's like, "Oh, you'd love this guy who's doing this incredible work in Malibu. He's got this center called Q360 where he basically helps people through light and sound technologies." And when I went there, I really was impressed at what I saw and how people are so happy to have non-invasive treatments done on themselves and the incredible benefits that they get from it. I'm now a good friend of the guy running the center. His name's Aaron, and he's a genius. I mean, there's no like you don't often meet those kinds of people. And I was just very impressed at how generous he is as a human to put himself, because it's risky, they really do try and suppress this knowledge because he'll be the first one to tell you that these technologies have been around. He hasn't been in anything new. Nikola Tesla, Royal Raymond Rife. I mean, all these people, they lived in the early 1900s, and they provided the world with these incredible inventions. But people don't often know about these things, and so it's interesting now to be able to see this stuff come back. And so going back to the whole idea of synchronicity, I mean, I was looking to, accomplish something, and instead I got led to a place that, it's like, for me, that's magic. I mean, knowing that there's good-hearted souls that have, such incredible minds, and they're of service, to others, to be surrounded by those kinds of people, instead of the superficial people. I don't want to say for all people in Hollywood, but I mean, there was a lot of superficial people in the entertainment industry. And so all of a sudden, I feel like I'm where I should be for now. And of course, I'll still keep doing my storytelling, because it all, fits within the same ecosystem. I'm always telling stories that are able to help people elevate their consciousness. So in a way, it's within a science within itself is storytelling, and understanding how that whole process works. But
So I want
it's
to
just
just
funny how, yeah,
interrupt for
going
one second.
connects.
I just want to
Go ahead.
invite you to make a small adjustment in a perception or a viewpoint, and that is when you talk about
Yes, please.
superficial people in Hollywood. I would invite you to refer to it more as superficiality in Hollywood, because I learned this a few years ago. When you characterize somebody or a group, then you create that reality. Right? You
Right.
collapse all their infinite possibilities of who they are into the uh, the perception that you're looking to
If I
see.
can correct myself then, in that sense, what I really meant, I think, was not just any specific individual, mostly what the programming behind Hollywood really is, which is to keep people kind of lulled in this fake, reality of keeping you entertained without nourishing you with information that's going to really help you evolve ultimately. And so in that sense, I feel it's quite superficial, um, almost detrimental actually, because it's been going on for a while. But I'm seeing a lot more light coming into the space, especially now with democratization of through internet and people being able to you know express themselves and not be censored so much.
I'll tell you, there's a lot of inspiring, beautiful stuff coming out of Hollywood. In addition to the
Mm.
dark, dystopian, depressing stuff, the things that make kind of suck the hope out of people. There's the really inspiring and illuminating stuff out there too. Not just documentaries. There are movies, even animated movies. Like for example, the movie Soul. I haven't seen it yet,
Yes.
but I have family members who've seen it and they love it. It's on my list, but I don't have a lot of time to watch movies, so I might watch a movie every month or two. But yeah,
I
that
really
one,
recommend it.
yeah,
I've watched it. So
okay,
yeah, no, definitely. Actually, I knew it from watching the trailer and hearing people, talk about it. Yeah, you're actually right. We're starting now because I think people's consciousness is finally, it's spreading pretty fast. The new age or the young people, they're definitely more of that consciousness, and I mean that's it. It can be a win-win. You can make a successful, entertaining blockbuster film that's got soul in it,
yeah.
and make sure
Well,
that
even
it's
back in the day, like decades ago, that could happen and has happened. Think of the movie Contact, for example. It's decades old now, and it's really inspiring, and it's a really heartfelt science fiction movie. And The Last Mimsy, also again heartfelt science fiction, but more for kids. A
yeah.
great for adults too, but that's not a super well known movie. But it's a great movie. It's a feel good movie.
Yeah,
Uh,
you spoke to me about it once. I think I really got to watch The Last Names. I've seen Contact. Contact's really great.
yeah,
Um, and it definitely it was, I think, considered a pretty good hit at the time. But if I think of movies like The Matrix, or Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, even Star Wars, I mean, all these movies that have really hit the big time, um, have definitely, they have a lot of spiritual innuendos and a lot of knowledge that, for those that understand what they're really saying, it's quite. There's a reason why people resonate with that from deep, because when you have such a strong reaction to those, like you do when you watch those kinds of films, um, it goes deeper than just the straight up storytelling of Hollywood. It really you're starting to talk about that dream space, and you're starting to give that universe structure, and we're, I think, aware of that from a place that comes even before this incarnation, and so it really draws us in. um, but yeah, I could speak about those films, tirelessly forever, because I love them so much, and they've inspired me growing up. Watched The Matrix when I was 9 years old, and I mean, I knew there was something to it. Now I watch it over and over again and keep finding new things that I go, oh my gosh, they're actually talking about this and that. And I'm just like, yeah, now that I'm studying more about things that they talk about, it really makes sense.
Yeah, it is quite a
really
profound movie, The Matrix. Now, the other two, not so much. The two follow-up movies, I think, took away from the original message. I think just watch the first one. But I'm curious if you saw the.
Yeah, I'm referencing the first one.
Yeah,
mostly first one. Yeah.
I'm curious if you saw Cloud Atlas.
Yes, I've watched Cloud Atlas by the same filmmakers and Tom Twyker.
Yeah. The same filmmakers of The Matrix. Yeah.
Yeah. So that movie, yes, the whole I mean, if you really pay attention, you understand that all those timelines and all those stories are happening simultaneously.
Yeah, I'll tell you a real mind bender is, and I learned this actually in Kabbalah. I think it was taught in Kabbalah. The present, as well as the past and the future, all happen simultaneously. And that just is too wild. Like, you don't really understand it until after you pass back into the non-physical. But that's what makes it possible for the ability to see into the future, because the future is essentially happening now. So I'll get intuitive hits, things that tell me to do something or another thing because something's going to come to fruition in the future if I do that, and lo and behold, it does. It's like it's spooky, but it makes a lot of sense if you step back and you see that time is really an illusion. And that's something that is actually in the first line of the Anabacoa prayer. Is the first line of the meditation is that time, space, the realization that time, space, and motion are an illusion.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, like you said, the future and also the past. I've realized that I've written things in my stories that I thought I was just being very creative, and instead I realized that some of the things I was writing actually occurred exactly as I wrote them, but I had nobody told me about those things, and it's not even that openly talked about. Certain things I've had to dig and then realize, oh my gosh, how did I do that? How I was just channeling from the past. So yeah, fascinating stuff.
Yeah,
totally.
So back to synchronicities. You met this filmmaker or Hollywood person. You flew to the States, to L.A. on the assumption and promise of a big deal that fell through because of some issues with this person. And
unfortunate, because I really cared about this person, and so it just felt like, I couldn't really help him. I couldn't do anything. It's just, you just have to accept that it's a reality that you just, you shift. And I just shifted and went with it. Stayed as long as I could until it really, I needed my space. And then funny enough, I met somebody that I hadn't seen in like 10 years, came by the office to visit, and brought a friend at one point, invited a friend. And that friend is actually a person who I've become very close with now. And I'm actually in their home right now. I've been invited just to stay for, we actually didn't even put a date on it. It's like, well, she knew that I needed to go on this journey and trust the universe. It wasn't like out of desperation or anything like that. I had options, but it just felt right to be with somebody that shared my consciousness, and we could help assist, we'd assist each other on this journey. So just because of that and nothing else, it was that whole journey that I did coming over here was worth it, just because I met, a soul sister that really, it's just so beautiful, the synchronicity out of that. But then of course, everything, just started coming together. So now she's also been going to the clinic and bringing her partner as well. And that's just, it's been transformative for all of us. So I'm just amazed at how, it's really not even just about about you in the end. It's about, letting yourself just be of service, and being in your, in your right state of mind and state of being, and everything around you just starts to shift in such a way that it actually doesn't just benefit you, it benefits those around you. And then if you keep doing that and the other people are doing the same thing, then you can see how that just spreads wider
Yeah.
and wider and wider.
Yeah. So you follow your intuition, she follows hers, and then that kind of becomes contagious. Other people around you start following their intuition. Intuition really is just essentially angels speaking, whispering into your inner voice. You hear it as yourself, but it's not your subconscious, because your subconscious goes from thought to thought to thought to thought to thought, kind of a ricochet sort of thing happening inside your head, whereas intuition just sticks. It stays there. That is a sign that it's coming from a higher dimension. So,
It has to feel right.
yeah, well, it feels not just right, but it feels like who you are, your highest
Yeah.
self. Yeah. And the more you
Yeah.
listen to your intuition, the more you follow your intuition, and you manifest the things that your intuition is leading you to, the more magic and synchronicity shows up in your life. And then it just tends to accelerate, and compound. It's kind of the law of compounding returns, but in a metaphysical way.
Yeah. I want to add to that, because what people also need to understand is that it's not just it's the path of least resistance, but you have to acknowledge what it takes to walk that path as well. And it takes a great deal of love and a great deal of courage to be able to get through the tests that the universe is going to present you, where it's really going to start saying, oh, okay, he gets it, or she gets it. They're able to speak their truth, they're able to trust their instincts and their intuition, and therefore, all these events now are just going to help manifest in a much easier way. But at first, when you're just starting to transition from the previous consciousness and starting to choose the path, that can be, that can be tough at first. I have to say, it wasn't easy for me, but just sticking to your guns, just being clear with yourself, being honest, being true, and not, worrying about what other people are going to think just because, you're insecure or whatever. Just really learning to trust yourself.
Mm.
That's what it takes. Once you do that, then the magic really starts to happen. I mean, you start to feel it as a pleasant experience.
Yeah. So when you say courage, you mean the willingness to allow people to judge you, to ridicule you, ostracize you, uh, do things that are unjust, because you stand out as somebody who speaks your truth, who lives in a kind of a higher plane of existence, isn't just all about the, making the money and doing the stuff that's of the physical plane of reality. You get a lot of judgment when you step out of line like that.
You do, and that's important to just know that that's being true and honest, and therefore you're just you're not you don't want to, obviously, you want to be aware of who you have around you, and not necessarily make people feel like you're just here and they're there, and you just want to make sure that um, you're able to get yourself in a place where you can really listen to yourself and be yourself. And at times it may mean just having few quality people in your life, but that ultimately are able to allow you to shine your brightest. And so, not, sometimes even your own family won't understand. My family, I can't say everybody understands, what I'm going through right now, and I don't even at this point expect them to. But of course, at first it was, a bit difficult to try, because I feel very close to my family. But then I realized that it's really when you're starting to go on this evolutionary path, um, it again, not everybody is up to speed to what lies beyond the unseen.
Yeah.
Everybody is so attached to what we're going through right here that it's hard to process, that as above, so below, that there's, things that happen up here that then trickle down to here. And that if you are willing to not be not have this reality that we're in right now, this physical reality, dictate how you should be, then you become a master of your own reality. But it takes time to prove that, to family members or to anybody, that you've mastered that. And I'm still in that process I mean, it's a never ending process, but I'm saying I'm finally now witnessing, and people close to me are witnessing because they're of that consciousness, and they're open to it. But incredible things happen, and people sometimes aren't able to connect all the dots and say, oh my gosh, yeah, it's quite amazing how this actually occurred. They just kind of go, oh, it's just a coincidence, or it's just, we don't know. It could have happened in a billion different ways. And then, fast forward, to the future, and you actually go, oh no, it had to happen that way. It really did. But
Yeah.
that's, again, just trusting, having faith, and eventually you'll be, I mean, you know already now. It's everybody else that needs to kind of catch up. But then again, when the time comes for them, you will be able to give them all this wonderful insight. And that's why I also say, just because a flower hasn't bloomed yet and there's still a bud, doesn't mean it's not a flower.
Yeah,
It's about
that's
to bloom.
beautifully said. And to approach people who don't see what you see with unconditional love, with compassion, patience, and curiosity for what their world is like and what they're seeing is very important. Because if you are not seeing yourself as equally important as them and vice versa, that we're all equally important, you lose the plot, right? And this is also another important point I wanted to reiterate based on what you had said, is that your state of being creates your circumstances and not the other way around.
Correct. Yes. And like we said before, the heart plays a huge role. And when I speak of the heart, I mean your emotions. I mean, we are emotional beings, and the way we actually interface with our reality is through those emotions. And nature communicates through emotion. I mean, like when you communicate to your pet, or an animal gets scared when it feels that you're fearful. The very everything is understanding how to be centered in your in the emotion that you want the other being to perceive of who you are and where you're coming from. Just the way
Even with an
you know,
inanimate
yeah.
object, I hear people who talk very rudely to their Amazon Alexa. And I'm like, for one thing, science has shown, there's actual scientific studies that have shown that there are negative brain uh, chemistry reactions that happen by talking negatively to an inanimate object, such as your Alexa device. So it
Mhm.
hurts yourself. It also affects
Yeah.
the field around you. And people are in that field, or they come in contact with that field. So your negativity is affecting you and everyone around you and everything around you. And you think you're not harming anybody because you're just talking smack to your Alexa device.
Well, it's again like it's your not being conscious of how your thoughts do affect people around you and the environment, and ultimately will lead to specific events from happening, and being conscious of that. I mean, if you want to change your way of life, then you got to change the way you think, and the way you feel is an important part of it. And again, it's actually harder to change the way you feel than the way you think. And so what I say is it's so much easier just to try and decode what's going on inside of your heart, to then be able to let that influence your thoughts, because that's exactly what happens when you're unconscious of that process anyway. One emotion can spark 1,000 thoughts,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, and a
it's
great
really
way to
just
think about
because,
that
yeah.
is you're a receiver, like a FM radio, and
Hmm.
by having positive emotions, positive expectancy, feelings of abundance, gratitude, unconditional love, you have tuned your receiver to a frequency that allows a lot of positive, empowering, uh, very productive thoughts to come in. So these thoughts, especially the intuitive ones, which are coming from elsewhere, are amazing. And why wouldn't you want to stay at that high frequency? Now, if you get all angry, depressed, upset, frustrated, just hopeless, you've tuned your receiver to a very low frequency, and that's where the really dark stuff starts coming in. The the self um, defeating thoughts, the things that where you beat yourself up, and they're not. Many of these thoughts aren't even yours. They're just coming from, instead of the higher vibrational angels, they're coming from, the dark entities, the souls who are looking to suck off your energy, and so you're feeling all um, this like dark stuff just because you've tuned into the wrong frequency, the wrong channel.
Well, to be fair, I mean, this has just come with, the research that I've been doing into scalar frequencies and scalar waves,
Mm-hmm.
which maybe you're aware of, but there's particular frequencies that, like, for example, your body gives off the chi energy, right? The life force, the toroidal field that your body creates. So that frequency range is actually so small, it really penetrates through to your DNA. And it actually doesn't even, like, it can go literally across the planet and not lose any of its power. And so anybody you think of, anything that actually the scalar waves, you can actually create machines that emanate those frequencies. And I think it's important to understand that the military and a lot of other, people in various sectors of power are very well aware of how that works, and have been putting out particular frequencies to suppress people's consciousness. So it's more difficult than it should be. It's actually, we're kind of being bombarded with these frequencies that keep us, in that kind of depressed state already, or angry, or, they're influencing that, because it's so much easier to control people that are in that state than it is people that are speaking the truth and being, sovereign unto themselves and channeling their own frequency, and literally being able to shield out those particular frequencies. And so I understand. I mean, now that I've done this research, I see how even, some of the best people in the world, that have a good heart, but that haven't, don't, they're perhaps very sensitive. And so that even when they hang out with particular people, they can't help but take on their energy, like empaths. And so to really understand that, especially if you're sensitive, you really need to put a little more effort into, staying centered and really protecting yourself from all this bombardment of stuff that's thrown at us, because it really is detrimental, and it really does affect, everybody on the planet. And so that's important to there's all sorts of precautions one can take, but ultimately there's nothing better than just, staying strong and centered and in love. And it takes effort. That's the important thing. I know it doesn't come easy for people, that are in a depressed state, to just, feel love and feel gratitude. So to just understand what's really going on, so that they don't just put the blame onto themselves, because blame is just, that's the ego just feel, you're adding more weight than you need to. It's unnecessary. But to understand it's not, your fault. It's just, we've been manipulated to quite a big extent, and to just empower ourselves with the knowledge that's going to set us free ultimately.
I wanted to circle back to something that you had said a minute or two ago about protecting ourselves energetically, especially if you're an empath, so that you don't take on too much of other people's negative energy. And this was from a docuseries I was watching on I think it's called Superpower. And David Sauvage was one of the folks interviewed in this docuseries. He is an empath and is able to really go deep into what's going on inside of you without your like being able to articulate these things. He's just able to go deep and to a point where it's even like from past lives and from your birth and very early formative years and so forth. It was impressive what I saw in that docuseries. So what he does is, so that he doesn't take on people's stuff, because he has such a gift with this, he has a certain pendant or something that he wears that helps him to kind of block that energy so he doesn't take it on. And he takes the thing off when he's doing a session with the client. So that was intriguing to me. One thing that I do every morning and night is I'll do this visualization exercise where I have 3 bubbles of protection around me, and one of them is a mirrored sphere facing outward to repel all negativity. This is the Metatron prayer of protection that I do, and it's really, really helpful. Really, really helpful.
I've tried it. It
Okay.
works. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
It
just 2 weeks of doing it for on at least a daily basis, you'll feel the impact. You really will.
Yeah, that's again, even just taking time and whether it's mindfulness or just feeling that energy channeled through your body is already creating some form of protection. But then of course by engaging the power of visualization, you're tapping into what people refer to as the sort of the magical aspect of this work, which actually it comes from the Magi, so imagination. And so when you engage your imagination, that's what you should be doing with your brain most of the time, is just, allowing it to visualize things that ultimately are going to, create in the ethereal plane, like you said, in this case, protection, or sending love and healing energy to somebody, and just seeing even the colors, the spectrum of light, just visualizing that creates an electrolysis, process within your own electrochemical process within your body. And so when people understand that it's really a science, I mean, when they understand that, we're not just sitting down and just, not doing anything. We're actually, it's a science. You have to understand all these different techniques, because that's a whole other aspect of understanding. It's like you feed your body what it needs, the minerals it needs to be able to function. And you make your body exercise. You have to do the same thing for your mind and for your spirit. So,
well, this is something I just recently learned, and like within the last week or two. One of my coaches is a Spala teacher. I started studying under him like 5 or 6 years ago, and he was differentiating for me understanding versus wisdom. Understanding, which I have been seeking with fervor. I'm just like going after more and more information and trying to figure all this out as things have been accelerating for me over these last few months. So that, in a way, gets in the way for me, because my understanding almost blocks the wisdom. They're not the same thing, and wisdom just essentially comes to you as a gift, whereas the understanding is something that you're processing all this information, all these different inputs to get. Understanding is great, but it is not the full picture. Wisdom is a much more rewarding thing. So when King Solomon Solomon asked God for wisdom when he was he was given the option of like, you've been so amazing, I'm going to grant you whatever you want. What do you want? And the only thing he wanted was wisdom. And because he wanted that and nothing else, God gave him everything else. Like, that's all.
Right.
It all comes for free with the wisdom. It's pretty amazing.
Well,
So
it's the intention. What's the intent behind whatever it is that you're doing, and why are you seeking that? What's the intent behind that? I think that's very, very important for anything that you do, is to know where it's coming from. We're curious, by nature, but sometimes our curiosity, can supersede the very thing that we're actually trying to accomplish, which is, to gain that wisdom and knowing how to apply it in a way that's, sometimes, like, you're just gonna learn things as you do them, as you go through the experience, and just saying, yes, I want to just go through something I've never tried before, just because I want to test myself and explore myself. But I'm not worried about not knowing enough or knowing too much. Sometimes knowing too much is the problem, right? That's what you're saying. You're not supposed to be too analytical. You're supposed to just feel into it and allow that to be the driver. Because by doing so, the mind will know at certain points how to, provide you with the information you need to be able to communicate or to be able to do specific things. But to really be centered and focused throughout. I'll keep saying this over and over again, because that's, and I know we only have a few minutes left, but I really just want to touch upon our DNA and how important everything we've just spoke about actually relates to that. Because DNA and consciousness actually, DNA is an antenna for consciousness. And so a lot of the way in which, we're able to feel and even our own genetics, how they're related, our DNA dictates a lot of that. And of course, if you studied the work of Bruce Lipton with epigenetics, your thoughts and emotions can change. You can change your DNA code just by thinking and feeling specific thoughts. So right now, we're kind of going through a moment where people are really concerned about what's going to happen, with viruses and vaccines, and how, and if our DNA is going to be impacted by that. And in the end, I just want to help reassure everybody that, even though there may be some, nefarious things going on, because, people say this virus was, created, and it didn't just, develop from natural, just like that. To be aware that, the best way to actually protect yourself is through your consciousness. You can program, so not to be in fear, because fear actually drops your immune system by, I would say, 40%. You can do, I encourage people to do more research on how your state of being influences your immune system. But ultimately, DNA and consciousness, that's part of our Ascension evolution. If we can understand how, certain aspects, I'm pulling up right now just something I found that was very interesting, that technically we say we only have 2 strands of DNA, but actually we have, they call the rest junk DNA, but it's actually not. There's no such thing. It's just not DNA that perhaps hasn't been activated yet. But some of us, I'm sure, you're certainly beyond the 2 strands at this point, because I want people to understand that the first strand represents like the courage to move ahead and integrate our fears. The second strand, the ability to focus on something and follow it to completion. The third strand is maintaining gender balance between male and female power. So as you've noticed right now, people that are not aware of their, how can I say, their female and male energies and integrating them as a whole within yourself, are really kind of still in that patriarchal, mentality of needing to suppress your feminine side because, that you think that there's something wrong with that. It's not. It's total perfect, marriage of energies within yourself. And we just use gender but because we're human, we tend to, see it as sex, but it's not. It's just, these are just energies, right? And so that's the third strand. Fourth strand is balance between our energy field and the physical body, right? So everything we just talked about, that's the fourth strand as well. And then the fifth strand is living peacefully in a state of acceptance. And so that's how you activate that. And then the sixth strand is strength to stand in one's truth regardless of the outcome. All right, so you've already gone from, just a 2-strand to a 6-strand DNA by just understanding how if your consciousness is able to process everything I've just mentioned, you're activating more and more your DNA by staying within that energy, right? That consciousness. So I'm going to continue all the way to 12. So the 7th strand is the ability to accept both our dark and light sides. All right. So even that, there you go, transcending the ego and integrating your shadow, doing shadow work is also very important. And that will activate that. And then the 8th strand is the ability to hold personal boundaries regardless of outcomes. Okay. So again, just no matter where you are, just to realize you're to protect yourself, but not like just be yourself. And that will automatically, activate that 8th strand. And the 9th strand is ability to accept and live within a diverse community. So even, seeking to integrate yourself and be of service and be with others in a cohesive way. You're at 9. At 10, your ability to tune into and listen to one's soul or higher self. So you see, we start activating psychic abilities once we keep going up the so-called Jacob's ladder, right? That's what it's talking about too. And then the 11th strand is the power to envision and create and manifest these visions in 3D. Okay, so now we're really understanding how the manifestation gets activated much more significantly once you've really gone through all of these different strands. And then the 12th strand is the ability to be accepting, kind, and appreciate the value in all things. So really that oneness, that sense of oneness and beingness with all that is created. Yeah. So that's important.
Really important to think in terms of accepting what isn't working and what doesn't seem to be for your benefit as being ultimately for your soul's benefit. Seeing, in other words, the hand of God in everything, right? So that that relationship with that Hollywood person that didn't work out, and that deal that fell apart. Seeing the issues that you're facing with in regards to the pandemic and so forth, and its personal impact on you that's not been positive, seeing the hand of God in that. Accepting that these are helpful to your soul's path, to your soul's growth.
Well, that's the thing, I really kind of went into it with expectation. And I've learned now that expectations lead to disappointments. And so not to just, think, oh yeah, now this is going to happen or that needs to happen. It doesn't need to happen. It would be nice if it happened, but I'm not going to attach my expectations and my happiness to it, so that, if it doesn't, it's okay. It's as if, we're just, everything's fine. That means it's just meant something else is really meant to happen, but I'm going to keep maintaining, that energy field and be in my center, because that's what's going to, attract the right events. That is even better. I think I'm actually in a better situation now than I was before because of everything that I've learned along the way. And I have all these, tools now that I can use to be able to, go even further into this ascension journey. And of course, I still met some very good people through, this person that I came here with for, that are absolutely amazing. And I know that something is still going to come of it. It's just, it's going to happen when it's going to happen. I'm not going to worry about, the timing on that or exactly how it's going to happen. But, just knowing that there's good people out there, even in Hollywood and they're really doing their best to try and change the world for the better. And so I guess we can, I know we're at the end here, but I guess we can leave this with the message of just, be the change you wish to see in the world, which is a famous quote, I think, by Gandhi, or
Yep.
anyway, a lot of people
Yep.
talk
Gandhi.
about being the change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And trust
So
that
be
this
the
is,
change and take that responsibility.
yeah. And trust that this is all happening for you, not to you. It's all for your benefit.
Exactly.
Yeah. Beautiful.
You will learn to appreciate yourself, will grow so much. Just take on this life, and the more you work at it, the better, the outcome, for sure.
Yeah. All right. So how do our listeners get in touch, learn more, potentially work with you? What's the best place for them to go?
Well, I have a website which has some of my photographic work. I'll be honest, this is the first podcast that I really do, where I'm able to really kind of open up about all these things. So I'm very grateful to you, Stephan, for pushing me to do something I haven't done before. But I'm definitely excited about, how your listeners are going to perceive everything we discussed. And if they do want to start a conversation with me, they're welcome to come to my website, which is Edward Haschke, which is HASCHKE.com, or even hit me up on Facebook or Instagram, which, Edward Haschke. And I don't think there's many people with that name out there, so you'll find me easily.
All right. Well, thank you, Edward. This was so fun, inspiring, and you're such a cool guy. Heartfelt and open, and yeah. I love your energy. So thank you for joining us.
I appreciate you so much, and blessings to you and your wife for your next travels.
Thank you. And blessings to you too. And blessings to you, my listener. Thank you so much for listening all the way to the end of this episode. And I hope you got something profound out of it, and that at least you're going to take 1, 2, or maybe 3 actions out of this. If it's just to maybe read Yogananda's book, The Biography of a Yogi, or to read a little bit about Kabbalah, or check out Bruce Lipton, or the docuseries that I mentioned that David Savage was in. Something. Just pick something. Watch The Matrix again. And we'll catch you in the next episode of Get Yourself Optimized.